Of the programme, the government will be laying out its plans to level up the country today. One key area of improvement is the access to education and the desirability of jobs. Well, the City and Guilds Group is warning that critical industries such as food production, as well as health and social care, are at risk of collapse due to a growing labour crisis. So what can be done to get those jobs filled? Well, joining me now is Kirsty Donnelly. She's Chief Executive of the City and Guilds Group. Kirsty, welcome to you. Why are people not being attracted to some of these careers?
Well, quite simply, we're just not making them as desirable as we need to be. We're not demonstrating the real value and respect in these jobs. I mean, these essential jobs are the very jobs that for the last 2 years as we've come through COVID, we've relied on. You already mentioned there, food manufacturing, the food we eat, health and social care, the fact that we've been well looked after. And yet actually, these are just 2 of the 10 areas that we've looked at, essential job areas where we are seeing absolutely a labour crisis. I mean, we worried throughout the period of the COVID pandemic about an unemployment crisis. Well, clearly unemployment at its lowest level it's been for a long, long time. But we do have a labour market crisis, and they are in a number of these key essential job areas. So we need to do more to promote the value. We need to do more around helping people get the skills and training that they need to then move into these jobs.
I mean, alternatively, the employers could just pay people more doing these jobs.
Well, that's absolutely correct. I mean, of the 5 reasons that people quoted, pay was definitely one of them. Interestingly, it wasn't the top one. The top one was not of interest because people aren't just aware of the jobs, but pay and reward clearly does feature. But it's more nuanced than that, Ian, actually. It's about value. So it is about pay, but it's also about people feeling valued and respected. And there was also intergenerational gaps between older people wanting more aspects around progression and training, whereas younger people, of course, tending to choose pay as one of the reasons they may not enter. But you're absolutely right. There is much more work that employers need to do to reward and do more training in these particular occupations.
I mean, alternatively, I guess, would be for employers to spend more on automation so that they don't have these labour shortages at all. I mean, can a lot of these jobs be replaced by automation?
Well, what's really interesting actually about the findings is in a lot of the 10 occupational areas that make up these essential skills, they happen to be the ones where, yes, whilst automation will inevitably feature, like it's going to feature in pretty much any occupation over the years to come, there is a lot more human skill required in many of the jobs we're talking about here. I mean, health and social care, we know that there can be more automation coming into it and will come into it, but essentially there are so many aspects of that role that require human interaction and human skill, and that's true for a number of the job occupations that we studied. And essentially, even where AI is concerned, we're still going to have to skill people to be able to use the AI intelligently anyway.
To what extent, Kirsty, have these shortages been exacerbated by Brexit? I mean, a lot of these roles presumably were filled by EU workers who've gone home.
There's no doubt that the Brexit factor does play out here, as does the COVID factor. I mean, it's like a double compound. And yes, many of these roles would have been filled by people who've gone home, either due to Brexit and also maybe because of the COVID impact. And I think that just says something again about the comment I was making before about value and pride and how we put the value and pride back into these really, really important jobs and occupations. And that's something we need to do as a society, government needs to do, and of course employers need to play their role as well.
It's a really, really good point you raised there. I mean, just how on earth do you instill value and pride, you know, for a care worker who's sort of spoon feeding an old age pensioner with dementia?
Well, look, I think, you know, a lot of people who are doing those jobs, I think their pride comes from the very fact they are helping somebody in that very, very unfortunate situation. But it does come down to the value that's put on them by the employer. You mentioned pay and reward, the training they get, the career progression they get. There's something about, you know, as we did over the 2 years of COVID, I mean, I think the report actually demonstrates just how much more the health social care workers are appreciated in our society, but there is still much more we need to do. And ultimately, I think it does come down to 3 things. If the government are really serious about levelling up, and we talk about levelling up being around the cities and towns and creating greater access and more beautiful spaces, that's great. But ultimately, we need to level up in skills and jobs first and foremost. And part of that levelling up has to be about driving this respect and value in these really essential, important jobs.
Absolutely. Kirsty, very good to see you this morning. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ian.